podcast. I have with me here Eric Creech and Kyle Whitley. I'm Ashby Brain. Welcome.
Woo! We're here! Yes! Flip the table!
I can't flip it from this side. There's so many things that would go wrong flipping it this way. Your laptop would hit the wall. This drink is going straight for that thing this time.
I regret,
Okay, so
I regret this immediately.
I actually understand now. I'm no longer in my seat. She's in my seat. I'm in your seat now, and I get it.
You've got to do something to get hyped because there's no structured words at that point. It's like, okay, you introed us, great. What do I say now? Well, we're great. Keep going. You just yell random things.
She got like 3 inches taller. I mean, she literally is. Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry, Ashby.
That was great.
I was gonna not do it because I was just like, that is the most professional.
That was very, but that's not who we are. She can turn us professional later, but we're gonna fight it. We're gonna fight the power.
This is the whole point of me being here.
Yes,
I
to
bring
rein
it
us
down,
in.
you take it back up. I bring it back down, you take it back up.
Yeah, we're like that Chumbawamba song. We'll get knocked down, but we'll get up again.
I even knew it was probably coming, and it's
never
still
gonna keep us down.
terrified me.
Yep.
I almost heard that there because I was like, that was too good to yell at. Like, what do we do?
I was waiting for you, and I was like, he's not.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to do this. I have to do
That's
it now.
great. I feel like I was listening to
Oh my goodness. Welcome to the What the What podcast, where we are exploring all things pop culture, whether you are...
Says yours wasn't good enough. Let me do this again.
No, this is the call to action where I'm...
That's right.
Yeah, she did the intro. This is the call to action. This is pretty much what you read last week.
Oh, great.
Whether you are a rogue agent, or maybe a Nightwing, or maybe
Sure you didn't write this down? That's pretty good.
or maybe an alternate evil version of yourself from another dimension, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, rate and review us. 5 stars only. That's one more than the Fantastic Four.
And if you have an evil twin, you should both like
Yes,
podcast.
absolutely. Yes, if there's an alternate version of you, then all of you,
Yeah.
5 stars. 5
You
stars.
said it's 1 star more than the Fantastic Four, right?
Well, that's one more than the members of the Fantastic Four, but
That's
one
also 5 stars more than the last movie got.
That's absolutely true. Yes, and that's also, but it's one less than I think the
Wah, wah, wah.
6 members of the Justice League.
I didn't even see it. I'm just assuming it.
Me
0
either.
stars.
Please also follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, searching for us at What the What Media. This is where y'all jump in.
All one word.
Yeah, there it is.
Sorry, we were drinking.
All one word.
Yes, a family show. And find us on Twitter at WTW_media, which all these are for What the What fans. We could always use a little more fans. So please invite your friends to like us, to share, and to subscribe, and then they can become our friends. Friends are great, right? Y'all would agree with that.
That's right. Even if you don't listen to the show, we'd love to have you
5 stars.
follow us on social
Yeah,
media.
especially on YouTube. We need to get to 100 quickly.
Yes,
I mean, we've been on
YouTube.
YouTube for 6 months. And
We need to get back to doing videos like we used to for Instagram and stuff that was just random videos that weren't necessarily podcasts.
remember the Sandlot one?
Yes,
that was our
something like
best
that.
one.
If we were to do that, that's the type
Or
of
when
things
Rickie
people wanna
threw the
watch.
Simba doll off the roof.
Yes.
Did
Things
you ever
like
see
that.
that?
That sounds sort of familiar.
Like literally, he's up on the roof doing the no way, and he drops Simba, and it's like, oh god, he killed him.
Oh no!
This
That's
is not
the
good.
things we need
This
to
is
get
not
back to
good.
filming.
Yeah, stuff on the roof.
Yes,
Stuff on the roof.
stuff's always better
Okay.
on the roof. There's songs about it up on the roof.
Yeah, we could do extras behind the scenes. We could maybe dabble in the extra stuff that Eric's always saying we should do, and
Yes,
just do
that
that
we
on
just don't do.
YouTube.
That we just don't.
That's
do,
right. Yeah, getting weird with Ashby.
Yeah, we can have
Memes.
outtakes because we have. I mean, he ends up deleting the video when he uploads it anyway, but we have
On
so
my
many,
iPad at least.
so many outtakes.
I was actually really sad that you took out me somersaulting in my chair the other day. When
Yeah,
I was
that was a
when I
really cool
adjusting
visual
And
there.
I turtled around in the
That
chair.
was a really cool
Took
visual.
that out.
Well, there was one part that I was going to leave, but it was where the computer messed up and I had to stop. And then I was like, oh, I'm just going to leave it in. It'll be funny. But then I didn't realize how long it took me to fix
It
the
took
computer.
forever. I mean, it was
There's
literally a whole Harry Potter movie we could have watched.
Yes.
I mean,
Especially when you're editing it. Time goes by so slowly when you're editing
it's
the
like
video.
watching The Return of the King.
So it seems like for 10 minutes I was trying to fix something and it just didn't work.
Keeps going on.
Director's extended
Yeah,
cut.
extended cut. Yes.
4 hours.
4 hours long with commentary. Last week on this podcast, we discussed one of the movies of the Batman 90s
To
generation.
be fair, the more we talked about it, the more I liked it. For some reason, I was like,
I was going to say one of the greatest Batman movies of our generation. No, that's not true.
That's
one
an
of the
excellent
movies.
example of groupthink.
yes.
Batman Forever, and today we are diving deep.
Deep dive! Heck yeah, for grammar.
Into our favorite comic book characters. Here is your spoiler warning for today's episode. I have no idea what they're going to talk about. I have a vague recollection of what I'm going to talk about. But if you're interested in any kind of comic book character, whether they originated there or they were adapted there from another medium, and you don't want to be spoiled anything about that character, then you should go do all the research. All the research now. So, yeah.
I feel like we should just give a general spoiler. If you like pop culture,
Yeah, we're going to spoil the crap
it for
out of
you.
it. Because that's what we do.
Especially for your
what we
podcast.
do.
If
Yeah.
you like pop culture crap.
Yeah.
Or toilets from your childhood.
Oh my goodness. So, favorite comic book characters, we're doing 3 each.
Okay.
Who would like to go first?
I have a speech I'd like to give first.
Oh, wait, we have a speech. Speech!
I wrote it down and everything.
You may need to get closer to your microphone.
I would first like to apologize to Hunter Batten
Oh, snap.
Oh.
This is a first.
Oh no.
for baiting him on this podcast. I'm not going to stop doing it. I just want to apologize.
Just to let you know that it's
Yeah.
going to
It's
happen.
going to keep
It's going to
happening.
keep happening. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so slight caveat to something I said in an earlier podcast, and Kyle repeated last week. I said that I did not become interested in comic books until I discovered the Marvel movies. And then the idea of trying to read and catch up on all the comics just seemed daunting. So I was going to be a comic watcher instead of a comic reader.
The lie detector determined that was a lie. No, I'm just kidding. We're delving into Maury now. Woo.
That's right. So, exactly. That's not exactly
You
true.
are the father. No, stop.
Anyway, so it's more true to say that I've always loved comic book characters and stories in the visual medium, but none of them made me want to care about the source material like the MCU did. And I realized that I needed to clarify that given some of the comic book characters that I came up with when I was kind of going through my favorite comic book characters list. I actually did watch a lot of the X-Men and Batman cartoons growing up on like Fox Kids.
Of course.
And I've seen a lot of the DC movies, a lot of the DC shows, a lot of the Marvel shows, even though ironically I like the DC shows more than I like the Marvel shows, even though I like the Marvel movies more than I like the DC movies, so that's neither here nor there.
That's fair.
But anyway, so I was consuming a lot of comic-based shows and movies. I just didn't care to read comics. But when I got into the MCU, I realized that, like researching and learning about the background of comic book characters could help you have like a deeper understanding of the characters if you were more in tune with the source material, because I would watch, Easter egg videos and they would say like, well, we know that this might happen because in this comic book, and I was like, wait a second, like you would have foreknowledge of these things if you read comic books. I still didn't want to read comic books, but I did want to watch YouTube videos about people talking about comic books so that I could understand the characters, which is...
That's fair.
Which honestly sometimes is a lot easier versus
Yes.
tracking things down anyway and trying to do it.
Right. So anyway, I just wanted to sort of clear the air about that. I do love comic book characters and stories. I just don't read comic books.
That's
That's
fair.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't really either.
We may need to still move your microphone closer. I just watched like the little lines on the screen of me and Eric, and we go like this, and then it gets to you, and it's like,
I was trying to really hit careful not to just shove that right in your
It's
nose.
fine.
well, Ashby's got 14
Well, funny story, Eric broke my nose.
And she's got a giant gap.
Next
in her
week,
teeth.
well, I need to apologize to Ashby for breaking your face. I can't promise it won't
It won't
happen
happen
again,
again.
but I'm going to apologize for the first time it happened.
I think that you guys need to get used to the fact that I have a female voice and I'm not just gonna constantly be screaming into this microphone.
But see, your lines are getting bigger.
Oh my god!
It's great.
I'm just gonna be yelling the whole time.
Well, the fun part is I don't actually adjust the podcast. I just do the YouTube videos. So these microphones have nothing to do with what I edit. It's all in Eric's hands when it comes to this. So
There you go.
fun times.
Yeah.
So who's going first?
You are.
Are you sure? It's not you. You
You
got your book out there.
You are.
Okay.
She gave her speech.
Okay.
And then you asked the question, so I'm just saying it to you.
Okay. Number 1, Nightwing.
You gotta show it to the camera.
Yes.
I'll let y'all like look at it and show it and such.
And such. I wanted such.
Let me just dive in real quick. Deep dive, not quite so much.
Deep dive?
Circus acrobat.
Deep dive!
See, it doesn't sound right for me. You say deep, and then we yell the deep dive. Either way, good try. When a circus acrobat family was brutally murdered, Dick Grayson was taken in by a billionaire and bat-friendly superhero Bruce Wayne. Bruce shared his secret life as Batman with a young boy and eventually molded him into Robin, the Dark Knight's partner in Gotham. But as Dick grew older, playing second fiddle to the sternest hero in the Justice League, he began to wear on him and eventually struck out on his own, staying true to what he learned as Robin while continuing into his own as a respected member of the superhero pantheon. So, this one actually isn't, like, I have the original one of where he becomes Nightwing, but for comic book reasons, that's the first series I started reading, especially as I got older. For me, I didn't really know who Nightwing was when I was super little, but once again, back to what you were talking about, Batman animated series, I watched it and I loved Robin growing up to the point that, and I think I've mentioned on the podcast before, but if I was to jump into that world, I don't know, I might just jump really loud like that. But I couldn't envision myself as Batman because I was a kid. But I can envision myself as Robin, like this fun kid that got to go and do things with Batman. So as I grew up watching the show, I kind of grew up with him. And the same way I remember the animated series, there's a section where there's an episode or two where he just finally has enough with Bruce and is like, forget this, I'm moving forward. I'm going to be my own character. So he becomes Nightwing and does that. Also, the first comic book series I ever read was while watching this show. And we went on a trip to the mountains, and I ended up grabbing a book from a convenience store, and it was called The Lost Years, and it kind of took, because Batman Animated Series did the animated series, and then they did whatever, it was still Batman, but I think it was like the New Adventures of Batman Robin or whatever.
Yes.
But it's like 4 books or 5 books told the story between what happened, and it pretty much talks about Nightwing. So for me, that's just been my favorite for a long time. Batman's not my favorite. I like the world and I like his whole Bat family. But Robin / pretty much Dick Grayson is my favorite. That's alongside Robin and then becoming Nightwing. But yeah.
Cool. Jordan said, convince me, please. Why is he your number 1? I don't know if you were convincing there.
My number 1, I don't
He's
know.
also stealing a future show concept, so
that's a good one.
Good for him.
I think for me though,
That's copyrighted.
Yeah.
Officially now.
I think there's that part of me that wanted to find somebody that wasn't super obvious to really like and to spend time with. Then there's the other side of me that's just like, his costume looks pretty cool. What's he all about? And like, I remember him from a cartoon series. What is this adult character doing now? So whenever I was married at least a year or two, and then finally I was like, I'm gonna get back in the comics because of all these movies that came out. And so whenever that happened, I ended up ordering a Nightwing to be the first one, and then that's what got me hooked on to buying comics and reading comics.
So really quickly,
Yes.
for those people at home like me, explain to me.
You live here now. She's really taking over.
No, I'm just picturing how red Hunter Batten's face is turning right now. Explain to me the difference between Robin and Nightwing. So did Nightwing start out as a Robin?
Yes.
Because there's more than one Robin.
Yes.
Okay. So he started
There's a
out
girl
as
Robin.
Robin.
Is it Stephanie Brown? Is that her name?
Oh, she's not current.
Oh.
She was at one point.
Okay, anyway,
And then
sorry.
he was like, I don't want to be your Robin anymore. I'm going to do my own thing.
Pretty
And that's how Nightwing
He was like
born.
the kid Robin,
Right.
who was raised by Bruce, and then as he got older, he got tired of being treated like, for the reasons that Bruce Wayne is Batman, where he can be a jerk sometimes. He's like, follow me, do exactly as I say, and he's like, look, I'm smart enough to know to do my own thing now.
That's my whole point.
So
why Batman
what did Batman do? He found another orphan, got him killed by the Joker, and then found a third orphan,
Yes.
named Tim Drake.
This is why I don't like Batman.
But the fourth one was his son.
Point.
So, or
He's
actually, maybe
not
his fifth,
a
or whatever.
good person. Anyway, that's
I don't
whatever.
know. We talked about this when you were gone last week, but like,
That's how math works.
but animated series Bruce Wayne's actually not that bad of a dude. But I don't know.
That's
into
true.
the comics, like he still has that same personality and that same thing. And to spoil it, like James, our friend, posted that he really likes the Red Hood, who was the Robin that got killed by the Joker.
Via phone-in.
Yes,
You had to
But
phone
didn't-
in. Phone in
Wait,
his
he
face.
actually died because that wasn't that Jason Todd? Didn't he
Yes.
come back?
he did.
You're thinking
Okay.
Sweeney Todd.
Well, Jason, yes. He died getting a haircut, I'm pretty sure. But he died.
There's our reference. No one saw coming.
The Joker beat him to death with the crowbar, and then he ended up going.
But the fans voted for it because they hated Jason.
They
Todd.
did. It literally, that's how Jason Todd died. He got put out in the comics. It's like, do you want Robin to live or not? And they
had
no.
They had to call this number.
Yeah,
and vote.
he called in and voted, do you want him to be alive or not? And they voted no, so they killed him.
That's harsh.
But then later on, they decided they needed a Robin or a different character, so they brought him back as they put him in the Lazarus pit. If
He
you
was
ever
the Red
watched
Hood.
Arrow or stuff, so
Right?
in the
Yeah.
Red Hood.
Okay.
No one's ever
It's
really
like-
gone.
No.
The Lazarus pit. Man, that so many plot twists on Arrow about the Lazarus pit.
Anything's happening, throw him in the pit.
That's right.
Well, you can't now because the show's gone, and so are the pits. Spoiler.
Oh yeah, spoiler alert.
That world still exists, though.
Thea got rid of all of them.
Does it? Like,
Speedy.
did you watch the Infinite Crisis on Infinite
I
Earths?
did.
Oh, so good. We should
was
do
so
it.
good.
We should do an episode on Crisis.
Yes, we should. So many callbacks.
So many.
So that's nice. My term with Nightwing's over. You choose.
It's you. You
Oh,
should
it's
go
me?
next.
Okay.
Yeah, you should go next.
So we're gonna go with my OG. This is Spider-Man. As someone who doesn't read a lot of comics, I do have a few at home that are these like the full like I guess graphic novels or whatever that put together in a nice little book. This is The Amazing Spider-Man: Kraven's Last Hunt because it's the only Spider-Man comic I own. Spider-Man, for me, we've talked about before, originated for me on the Spider-Man animated series, which also aired alongside with X-Men and Batman on the Fox Kids Network back in 1994, 95. And I just, the idea, like, I hate spiders. Okay, let me go and throw that out there. I hate the idea of spiders. Snakes are the same way. But
Which are you, spiders or snakes?
That's fair.
I hate
That's
snakes.
a common question.
I hate snakes more than spiders because at least with spiders I can step on.
That's true.
That's literally my logic.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
So,
Not promoting like animal violence here, but just
I am.
just life-saving techniques.
I'm promoting animal
Look, you
violence.
gotta get them before they can get you.
That's right. They're going to get you if you don't take action. Anyway, so I'm not a big fan of spiders, but the idea of a guy able to just crawl up walls and shoot, nice little webs and fling around New York City just really, really, appealed to me as a young 8-year-old back in 1994. And so Spider-Man, that show wasn't just about the superhero, but it was about his life too, and he had so many great villains and stuff. So I know we're talking about the comic book character, so not necessarily the show, but the show got me into the character in general. Like I said, I only own the one Spider-Man comic. This is Kraven's Last Hunt. It's a great little comic here, but
I see Venom.
yes, well, I mean, that is a Spider-Man in his,
Oh, nice,
in his black suit, I think. Is that right? Oh, is that right? Cool.
Oh, he looks like Venom.
I know.
He's just
Is
a
he
stronger.
supposed to? Is that supposed to be like? Is there
It's
a
the
point
same
there?
stuff.
It's the same stuff, yeah.
In the comics,
okay.
he became that stuff that came from the outer space.
Right.
He got it first. It got onto him, and then he realized it was making him a bad person, and had like a big struggle fighting to get it off. And
Yeah,
to
it
deal
was
with
making him emo and dancing in front of
Something like
Bryce
that.
Dallas Howard in the third Spider-Man movie.
Yes.
So,
And so it ends up from
The
there.
scene that will live in infamy.
From there, he ends
Terrible.
up Venom becomes him because he gets that
yes.
Okay.
suit.
It happens like that in the cartoon too.
So then, what's the whole Eddie Brock line? Because I watched Venom the movie, and none of that brought in Spider-Man. So I forgot that they were tied together so intimately.
I don't know so much if it was planned because I know at first with Venom they were like, we're doing our own thing with it.
So
Which I
we
actually
own the
like.
rights to this character, so we're just going
Right.
to do what we want to.
But now they're talking about there's going to be intertwining in it possibly. So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if it's
Who knows?
movies where they can kind of just throw things around how they want to. Now.
Right.
Yeah. So.
They still stick to it pretty good, but
Yeah, Spider-Man was just really awesome. He has a lot of really cool stories in the comics. This is one of my favorite ones where Kraven, which I'm really surprised we haven't seen him on the big screen yet. Rumor has it we may see him in Spider-Man 3, the Marvel whatever, Marvel version or the Sony version. I'm not really sure what it is at this point.
Marvel.
Yes,
I think.
Marvel. Yes. But with Kraven, he is he's a bad guy, but he's only a bad guy because he's against Spider-Man. I feel like he's like a hunter by nature, and he feels like Spider-Man's like the biggest prey like in the story. So he goes and he's trying to hunt down Spider-Man. And spoiler, he actually succeeds. This cover is Spider-Man coming out of the grave. Okay.
I've seen a
What
lot
is
of
this,
wrestling matches like
Heart
that.
of Darkness.
Yeah. Here, I'll let you.
There's
read
a lot
this.
more emo than you know.
Yeah, a lot of.
Yeah, that's dark.
I chimed in with a haven't you people ever heard of? Anyway, So, Spider-Man, my number one. Spider-Man.
Okay.
Closing the door.
Cool.
Are you sure you're okay?
No.
Do we need to bring in the couch?
Good news. We don't have to. It's here.
It's here. Ashby, you go.
So I feel like I did a little bit of a misdirection with some of my social stuff for this because I posted a picture of me as Rogue and now I'm wearing my Flash shirt.
Hold that thought.
Wow.
Wow.
I really thought that putting me in the middle would cure some of those people,
I
but as
said I was-
you can see, it has
I
not.
said I was going to throw something at some
Hey,
point.
it's okay.
I just figured I'd hit him and not the stands. But,
We're
you know,
throwing water bottles for you folks that can't see what's happening right
it's a
now.
Powerade bottle. Thank you. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you, but I was done and I didn't. Yeah, anyway, go ahead.
I think you did.
I was about to say, I don't know what. Did you think she was going to keep talking?
Maybe. I was very polite. And I
One day on this podcast, I am just going to keep talking. I'm going to see how long it takes you guys to just overpower.
No, you just go. No one else will just be like, okay, that sounds great. What else?
Okay, so number one. It's pretty obvious that I'm going to choose Sergeant James Buchanan, Bucky Barnes,
Totally.
the
I
Winter
knew
Soldier.
it. I knew it.
I mean, come on,
I figured
guys.
it was either Batman or him. I wasn't sure which.
I mean, you know how much I love Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so James Buchanan, Bucky Barnes, is a fictional character appearing in the American comic books published by Marvel Comics. Originally introduced as a sidekick to Captain America, the character was created by Joe Simon, and Jack Kirby, and first appeared in Captain America Comics #1, dated March 1944, which was published, side note, by Marvel's predecessor, Timely Comics, as the original and most well-known incarnation of Bucky. The character is a sort of kid sidekick to Captain America. He's brought back from supposed death later as the brainwashed assassin, the Winter Soldier, and then even later than that, assumes the role of Captain America when Steve Rogers is presumed dead. So he has a few different iterations, which are really interesting. So because I didn't have a script to go on this week,
I wonder who was supposed to put that together.
Eric,
Wait, hang on. How come I'm the one who puts the script
Because
together?
you're the one that started.
because you're a teacher,
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
It
you're
does.
good at lesson plans.
To be fair, if you never would have started,
First of all, hang on. How do you know I'm good at lesson plans? First of all, I could be the worst teacher
you've
ever.
given us scripts
I
already.
just assumed.
Don't assume I'm good at anything.
You've had your
Rule number one: don't assume I'm good at anything.
So you're telling me you're a bad teacher.
I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying don't assume.
How are you as the
But you're saying not to assume you're a good teacher.
Don't assume I'm a bad teacher either. Anyway,
Assume nothing. Anyway,
assume nothing about me.
so I came up with my own script, and so I have, for each of my characters, I have a character background, which I've just done, and then I have
Shit is
a
real.
personal introduction to the character, and then I have like a little fan-in versus canon versus headcanon section where I just kind of talk about random stuff about the character.
Somebody's getting shot with a cannon.
So, personal introduction to the character. Obviously, Sebastian Stan, like, period. Bucky, but, you know, it's not just about who I find attractive, okay? I just want to
Well,
reiterate
that's not why we're picking.
It's not just that Sebastian Stan is attractive and a
Let
very
me take
good
back my
actor.
number. No.
You ever seen Dick Grace's butt? It's pretty attractive.
That's America's
It's a,
butt.
it's a well-known trait. We should compare Captain
Yes.
America versus Nightman.
Yes.
Back to Ashby.
It's more
Family
than
show.
just Bucky is a nuanced character, okay, guys? He's probably one of the most integral MCU characters plot-wise that gets barely any screen time and certainly very little dialogue. Though I've read somewhere that Sebastian Stan has said he thinks it's easiest for him to play Bucky when there's no dialogue. And if you look at Winter Soldier, which we'll get to soon, absolutely you have to agree with him. What an actor, right?
Yes. What an actor.
I
I mean,
rewatched
he, like,
it last month. I think it's
in
he
his
does a lot
like
with
micro
himself.
expressions and his walk and the way he moves, it's so nuanced, to use that word again. But
especially
least you
like
didn't
half the
create that
movie.
word.
Like half the movie, his face is covered except his eyes and
Right.
his forehead. So he
Could have
does
been
a
played by
lot.
Yes.
Keanu Reeves, and his only line would have been "Yeah," like it is in John Wick.
But there were no dogs in Captain
Yeah.
America.
instead of his only line that's, you
Yeah.
know, who's Bucky?
Who's Bucky?
Keanu Reeves. Oh, anyway, okay.
Now I'm thinking of doing Christian Bale as Batman
Please
as
don't.
Winter Soldier.
Please don't. Please don't.
Who's Bucky?
Please don't.
Where are they?
Where are they? Where is she?
Where's Bucky?
Okay.
Because you were the best of us.
We've ruined Bucky now.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Anyway, so once I saw Bucky in the first Avenger, Captain America, the first Avenger, and especially Winter Soldier, I started, what I talked about earlier in this episode, I started researching. So I wanted to know about like his character in the MCU. I wanted to know about his comic character background. I wanted to know, like the fanon kind of headcanon around him. And so I started doing a lot of research. And I think it's really interesting with Bucky, especially in the MCU, it's sort of got that Robin background and choice where you can make him the kid sidekick or you can make him like the peer friend.
That's all I knew him as. I didn't know him because I didn't know a bunch of the comic book character, but I knew he existed. And so they were talking about bringing him in, like, oh, like he's getting a sidekick, and like, and then also for the past like 10 years, I'm like, he's gonna become Captain America someday.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for that one because so like whenever they announced the Captain America sequel called The Winter Soldier, people were going like, oh, The Winter Soldier. I'm like, yeah, The Winter Soldier. Let me find out who this is. Oh, spoiler, it's his friend Bucky. But then I was like, but he becomes Captain America. Oh wait, Cap's gonna die. Especially when they announced Civil War, I'm like, oh no, Cap's gonna die.
And I kept waiting. It's like, we're gonna have a new Captain America.
Sebastian Stan signed a 10-picture deal with Marvel, and he's only been in 2. Oh god, poor Cap.
To be fair, I think Sam Wilson's gonna do an amazing job.
Yes, he is.
But in that scene, and sorry for like coming all over you.
Oh no, it's fine.
But he said, it feels like somebody else's shield or whatever. And so I was waiting. It's like Bucky's right there. Bucky's right there. He's about to turn and be like,
you know what? You're right. It's mine. Give it to me.
Yeah, that would just be like, well, it should be somebody else's, and then he turns and gives it. But no.
So here's what's interesting about the MCU, and I have issues and I have like things I really love about the MCU, and so for the same reason that I can't really even fathom the MCU having like a kid sidekick Bucky, like it was definitely the right choice to make them childhood friends and peers. For that same reason, by the time Steve hands his shield to Sam Wilson, I can't picture Bucky in a place where he wants it or could handle it. And so even though in an ensemble cast movie, there are going to be things that are cut just for time, Sebastian Stan has made it very clear since Endgame that there was a conversation had between he and Steve where Bucky's like, I will have Sam's back. I will help him. Do not give that shield to me. Like, I've already got enough on my plate.
I was the Winter Soldier, and now they call me White Wolf in Wakanda for some reason. So
and then I've
already got all the.
And it's been 5 years, and like now I'm back, and it's just
I'm
a
no
lot.
longer brainwashed.
I'm just trying to form, and they keep giving me these metal arms.
Exactly. So anyway, I thought I just really like Bucky's character and where it went in the MCU. However, that being said, under my, like headcanon, fanon, canon section.
I love that word.
Fanon.
Fanon. So you guys have never heard of fanon?
No, that's a fantastic word.
So you know what canon is?
Yes, they're a Quidditch team in Harry Potter, the Chudley Cannons.
False.
Chudley's a great name.
It's canon that the Chudley Cannons in Harry Potter.
Yes, that's right.
And then headcanon is like obviously things that you personally think are true that you sort of read between the lines and see when you read or watch something.
It makes sense in your head, but you're the only one who knows. It's only canon in your head.
Yes, but then fanon is a largely accepted, widely accepted headcanon that everyone in the fandom adopts. So that's what fanon is.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that Bucky works so well because he's a foil for Steve. So he's very much the opposite of Steve in a lot of ways. He's a lover, not a fighter. We talked about this sort of after the Captain America episode, but on his last day stateside before being shipped to go overseas, he chooses to go to a sci-fi trait like a science expo.
Yes.
And it's like nerd alert, but there's something so pure about that, you know? And so there are a lot of fan theories that have swirled around about whether Bucky was enlisted or whether he was drafted and whether Steve knew. And there's a lot, I think, to unpack in that. But at almost every turn, like we were just talking about with his arm and being in Wakanda, Bucky seeks peace. He seeks rest.
Right.
And so ultimately, he's haunted by being a prisoner of war. He chooses to go back into cryo freeze until they can figure out how to fix the Winter Soldier programming. He didn't ask for another arm when being woken up. He's just becoming like a one-armed goat herder in Wakanda, just trying to...
Great work if you can get it.
Right, exactly.
I used to imagine people were like, man, you're hotter than a one-armed goat herder. It's like,
Also, I loved when the I'm gonna tell my kids meme went around,
Mhm.
and it was the picture of Bucky coming out of the hut, and it was like, I'm gonna tell my kids this was Jesus.
mhm. A whole other generation.
Yes, yes.
Wasn't that a
First
meme?
had
Somewhere? I'm gonna tell my kids this was.
Yes, yes. So I'm gonna tell my kids this was Jesus.
Mhm.
Nice.
But anyway, so I just really love that Bucky is the foil to Steve in the sense of him being willing to fight, but not excited or ready for the prospect of it. But as far as the fandom goes, if you're on Tumblr any, there's a really large part of the fandom that wants to just wrap Bucky up in a warm blanket and make him tea and read him sci-fi books.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, he deserves that. But I hope that the character and Sebastian Stan also is given the chance in the upcoming Disney Plus TV series to really take the time, not afforded, like I said, in a large cast movie, to really dig into what makes Bucky so special and so lovable and so worthy of unpacking his motivations and his trauma. So, and then I also have a bonus for Eric.
Oh.
Current song that I associate with Bucky as a character, "The Archer" by Taylor Swift.
Very nice.
There you go.
Eric looks very satisfied with that.
Yeah.
I think that works.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I think it will be cool to see him on his own show. And I know, like, you know, some of you out there may be like, well, you're talking more about a movie than you are a comic. Well, it's like, no, we said comic book characters. Doesn't say
Yeah, and we're going to talk, like I said, we're going to go into all phases of the character.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
going deep.
deep dive.
Yeah.
Deep.
But I don't know. I think like it's
Nobody cares.
No one cares.
I care.
Mm.
I'm a teacher.
go care.
But not necessarily a good one or a bad one.
I don't know. It gets me excited to see what they do with him though, because
Yeah.
there is a lot that once he came onto the scene, other than the one movie, there was just like tons of people in all the movies that he was part of.
Right.
So it's the same way he succeeded, but the same way I've talked about the DC ones, where I'd love to see Ben Affleck in a movie of his own as Batman, just so you finally see him and see what happens if you're just focused on him and not
Right.
we've got a billion things to put in a 2-hour movie.
Right.
So it is exciting to see that they have that outlet that they can put that.
Well, and Bucky has so many comic book iterations too
Mhm.
that I think, you know, there's so many places to go with the character. There's a lot of speculation in the fandom right now whether or not Sebastian Stan is going to show up in the Widow standalone movie as part of the Red Room, because part of his Winter Soldier history is tied in with the Red Room and Natasha. So, I mean, that's really interesting. When Winter Soldier came out, the end of that movie was supposed to set up for the third Captain America, which was going to be the Serpent Society, and it was going to be about Natasha and Steve and Sam looking for Bucky, but also trying to dismantle the Serpent Society, which I think is some kind of offshoot of the Red Room. But then they decided to go a completely different direction with Civil War. So that's why there's kind of that weird blip in the end of Winter Soldier where they're going to go look for Bucky, and then it, like, Civil War starts and it's kind of like they've been looking for him, but there was supposed to be a whole nother movie
That makes a lot more sense.
in there, and there wasn't. So
That does make sense.
yeah.
There's part of me that questioned at first that it's like, well, if Black Widow had seen him before, I'd just say anything. There's a whole part she doesn't really say anything about, like, she keeps that very personal.
Okay.
Well, so there's also some fan speculation about that with Natasha. So if she had met Bucky as the Winter Soldier, if he had trained some of the girls in the Red Room, and then later, obviously, he shoots her mark through her, you know, she's got that bullet wound on her stomach that he gave her. Was he wearing a mask the entire time?
That's true.
Like, every time he was out of cryo as the Winter Soldier, were they putting a mask on him so that no one
That makes
would
sense.
recognize him accidentally? Maybe she honestly didn't know.
I hadn't thought about that.
Two things.
Good point.
One, when they announced the Phase 3 Marvel slate, originally Captain America Civil War was announced as Captain America Serpent Society. And number two, we have a comment from some person named Ernie Brame who says, "This girl is my favorite. Nice addition." I can't tell which smiley face it is from so far away, though.
Hi, Dad.
Yes. So.
She's got her hair all nice and out of
Yeah,
the
no,
way.
out of her
Yeah.
hair. Yeah.
Yeah,
Out of
tell
her face.
Omar.
Her hair out of her hair.
Tell Oma that I got my hair out of my face this
That's
week.
right.
Yeah.
I think I saw your mom, like, working in the yard this afternoon on my way home.
No, it wasn't my mom.
Okay, then it was the neighbor because they still live
Yeah.
across the street.
Yes.
There's a lady over. Like I didn't get a quick look. It was just like
Yeah.
somebody's in the pine straw. And it's
Yes.
like I assume maybe that's them.
No, my mom's at the beach right now.
So you think she's
Look at
actually
her.
playing in the
She's-
pine straw at your house?
Ooh.
Totally kidding.
All right, Kyle.
All right.
Number 2.
Number 2. I gotta get my other book.
Talking to your mic.
I'm coming back. Here I am. All right, number 2. If you had to guess, Eric, who was it? Because you guessed my first one because you even put it in your thing.
I mean, I just assumed it was Nightwing because. Number 2, I'm gonna go with the Flash.
You were wrong.
I'm gonna go with I'm gonna say something really weird,
Go for
like Green Lantern.
Got you all fooled.
Is it a DC character?
Teenage Mutant Ninja
Oh,
Turtles.
that makes sense. Oh,
That's not a okay.
Oh, it is. It is.
oh, you're
Okay.
really gonna hate one of my
Totally
choices.
is.
Okay. It's only fair.
To be fair, this early
Are they comic book characters?
mid '80s, the comic book was
Okay.
created.
Okay.
Yes, if they
Before
were
the Turtles were
before
ever
the
done
Turtles
elsewhere.
were ever a cartoon or a movie.
So, Eastman and Laird actually were guys that lived in.
I actually want to see this. This is
Yeah.
amazing.
It's pretty cool. It's the
It-
first one.
It's also on his leg. Have
Yeah.
you seen his leg tattoo?
No.
Yeah,
Oh,
Ninja
dude.
Turtles on the leg.
You have a leg tattoo? That's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's pretty awesome.
And it's the cover?
No, it's
Oh,
one of
okay.
the scenes out of that book though.
Okay.
But
Oh,
Kevin
it's
Eastman's-
signed.
Yeah.
For those of you at home who can't really see it, it's signed.
It is
So-
Yeah.
Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird were roommates in the
Okay.
mid '80s, and they would constantly work on other people's books. They would work for different companies, same way a lot of artists and comic book people do now. But they worked for they pretty much they were freelancers doing whatever they could.
Mm-hmm.
And one night, the way they had their desk set up was one was here and the other one was like they had a little window in the house and they could pass it back and forth stuff. And one of them drew like a turtle that was standing up that had like nunchucks like strapped to his arm and had a bandana on. And they're like, "Oh, this is pretty funny," and passed it on. And the other guy's like, "Oh, that's really funny." So he drew 4, brought it back, and they went back and forth joking about it. And they ended up coming up with a crazy name, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And so that's where it all started from. And then they ended up coming up with the character, the Shredder, I think, because they were messing with stuff in the kitchen. They're like, "What can we call him?" And then same way, it blew up into it blew up to that. They had their tax return money and borrowed, I think, like a couple $1,000s from one of them's uncle and published one book. And that one book is what I have. And they pretty much wrote it as a one story. It's very much like the first Ninja Turtle movie from 1990 where Shredder dies at the end and that's it. And the book's over because they thought that was
I made a funny.
Yeah. Except without that part. But
Oh,
Wow.
still, that's a key part of the movie though.
yes.
But they expected it to be one movie or like one book and that was
was
it.
Vanilla Ice in this movie? No, that was the second
The
movie.
second one. But they put out the books. Next thing you know, they sold out like hotcakes. Had to turn around and buy more. Then they had to figure out, I guess we're going to make more of these. And so they had to write more and more stories. So the Shredder's gone for a long time because he technically died in the first book and so they bring him back in a different way.
Wow.
There's great documentaries on, I think they're both on Netflix. At least one of them is.
The Toys That Made Us.
The Toys That Made Us.
It's really awesome.
And then there's another one that was strictly about the Ninja Turtles. It's like an hour long. They go through a bunch of stuff like that and talk about that. But there's a guy that came along where they just, he was going to represent them and sell stuff for them and merchandising and everything else. And next thing you know, their comic book series or a TV series, which is what Eric and I probably maybe watched growing up, was the cartoon series there. The book is much different. They're more adult themed and angry somewhat versus the comic book or the cartoon was much more funny.
Raphael was cool but rude.
Yes. And Michelangelo was a
party.
party.
Yes.
They still all had their kind of own personalities and stuff, but the TV series is the reason they all have different colored masks because in the comic books, everything was black and white, but they just drew them all with red masks because they were just going to be ninja stuff. But the toy people and everybody else said,
You gotta be able to
if
tell
we're going to
apart.
sell toys, they're going to be how we're going to know them differently. So they gave them different colored masks and everything else. But for me, I didn't read the books growing up, but I feel like I was that perfect age when I was born and started finally watching TV, that was the popular thing. And so I was a little late and missed out on He-Man and stuff, but Ninja Turtles was right there.
Right
waiting for me.
there, yeah.
And so I was a big fan with everything in the world with that growing up. And even as I got older, I feel like they would put out a new cartoon on TV that was a little more adult, it's not really adult, but a little more. And they kept doing that. And then finally, at some point, I feel like it's once we got married, somewhere in there at Christmas, people were like, "What do you want for Christmas?" And it's like, "Well, you can get me these hardback books that's, first volume or whatever of the originals." And so I started doing that. And then I got into comics and I was like, well, it'd be kind of cool to finally like have an original one. Because if I had to pick, like that's probably, I like Nightwing and all, but like Ninja Turtles is like a big part of my life and who I pretty much kind of still am. But I tried to decide, it's like, well, I wonder what the original one goes for. Because they ended up being 3 printings, and there's a lot of that with comic books where they'll sell like the first series, they sell out, so they'll get a whole nother round printed up, and then they'll sell out and get a whole nother round printed up if it's that popular. So there's, I think, technically more than 3 now, but mine actually is the 3rd printing because the first one I think was on like 1,000 books or 3,000 books. But I found it on Amazon one day. Where I was like, oh, you know, because a lot of them on eBay was really expensive. Amazon ended up being, I want to say it was a little less than $100, and there was no picture of it, but it was like good condition. I was like, well, worst case, good condition. Like, I'm not expecting to own some great thing. Well, they ended up sending it to me, and it was like perfect condition and everything else. I was like, this is great. And like, so I read it one time to be like, I actually looked through this thing. But
yeah.
And then like, it was a month or 2 later, the same thing, because it came from a record company in Ohio. Like, I guess somebody they got it somehow, and they were just a store that mostly sold records, and they contacted me back, and they're like, well, hey, like, I know you bought the first one. We've got the next 4. Do you want those? And they're like, we'll sell it to you for, you know, whatever. And some of them were like first print or second or whatever. And so I ended up talking them down because at the time I really didn't have much money. And I was like, I really want them, but I've got like $150.
Right.
And they're like, well, no problem. We'll, you know, we'll take care of it. We'll even pay for shipping. You know, we'll send it your way.
Wow.
And so that's the autograph I have on it, those, because Kevin Eastman came to a comic book convention a couple years ago now. But he's one half of the creators. Peter Laird doesn't really tour as much and do all that, but Kevin Eastman does more. So I met him, and I don't know, it's one of those things you never know if you want to meet the people like that.
I was gonna ask, you know, they say like never meet your heroes.
Never meet your heroes, yeah.
I was really nervous about it, and I'll be like, I had like some VIP pass, they helped me get in the line faster, but the line was still, I was in line for like 2 hours. It was one of those things, you're around a bunch of other people that all have these cool things, so
right.
And they're talking, so it was cool, and time flew by. But it came time where they had to shut the line off where you couldn't come in anymore. And then they brought him food like halfway through it. And he was like, no, just sit on the floor. I'll get it later. And like, he passed his lunch up, passed everything up to make sure to speak and spend time with the people. And by the time I finally got to him, I was a little bit like, I don't want to be that dude that's going to take all your time because everybody's talking to you and stuff. But he was like multiple times asking me questions and trying to talk to me more than just me, just thanks for being here. Thanks for signing my stuff. Like, instead, right. He's like, you know, really, what are you doing? And because I remember just being honest, it's like, dude, you know, what you did changed my life. Like, it made me a different, I grew up because of this and just different things. And he's like, you know, he said, he said, you know, for me, you guys changed my life. He's like, because if none of you would have got into it, none of the fans cared about it, I wouldn't be here today. He's like, so you guys really changed my life forever. He's like, so I'm thankful for you guys. And I don't know, he's a super awesome guy. And so I can't appreciate that enough. Yeah. Versus I've read and heard some horror stories of meeting some of your favorite people, you know, or things that, you know, creators that are just absolute jerks and just want money and not so fun. But
yeah.
So my question for you then.
Yes.
What's your selection?
What do you mean my selection?
You're supposed to pick your.
I picked all 4.
That's nice against the rules.
You gotta pick one.
You gotta pick one.
Michelangelo's my favorite.
Okay. Michelangelo, because it's comic book characters, not comic book books.
Turds.
Turtles.
Turds. You say turds.
Turds.
I know. You said we were picking 3 characters. You just pick 4 in one.
They're all identical. Just got different. No, I'll pick Michelangelo.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
After a review on the play,
yes,
we've decided that.
Cool.
That's fine.
All right, my number 2. This is actually the only selection I have that did not originate like in a, was not based on a character from like a TV series or something. I've actually never seen this character in another kind of medium other than the comic book. This was actually the first comic book, like anything comic book related I ever bought. Based off a recommendation from my friend Chris Alt. You can find him at Nacho So Spicy on Twitter. Great Twitter handle. He recommended Miss Marvel. Mm-hmm. Not Carol Danvers. This is Kamala Khan.
She's awesome.
Yep, and you can't see her face, but here she is on the back. And she's really cool. I don't know if you know.
Ooh, I do want to see this.
She's really awesome. A little bit of background on Kamala Khan. She is a teenage Pakistani American from Jersey City, New Jersey, with shape-shifting abilities who discovers that she has inhuman genes in the aftermath of the Inhumanity storyline, and she assumes the mantle of Miss Marvel from her idol Carol Danvers after Danvers becomes Captain Marvel. She is one of the first, if not the first, Muslim character to headline a comic book. And she is very, I kind of compare her to like Spider-Man in the sense that she's a high school character. She's going through all these like things that teenagers would go through. Plus, she's a shapeshifter but she's just really, really fun. It's a fun little series. I've got the first 2 like volumes of this, and I need to get more of them. But it's just really cool. She has in the second one, she has a great team up with Wolverine because Wolverine's so gruff, and she's like, "Oh, Wolverine," it's one of my very favorites, and they announced for Disney Plus that she will be having her own Disney Plus show in the next couple of years.
Yes.
And it's going to be amazing. I cannot wait to see what they do with it because she is literally, she's just such a fun character. So for all she checked off a lot of boxes too. She's Pakistani American, she's Muslim. It's just, not what you typically see in comic books. And that's part of who she is, but that, it's not like everything who she is. It's not like, oh, read this because she's Muslim, read this because she's from, or her family's from Pakistan. No, that's part of who she is, but she's a superhero in her own right. And it's really cool to see her deal with some of the current issues, current as of, I think this came out in 2012, that plagues Pakistani Americans or Muslims in America in Jersey City. She deals with some of those issues too through her family. It's a really good character, really good story arc, really, really fun, and I recommend it for everybody. So
there's a cool part too of that where you mentioned the fact, being Muslim is one thing, but like the family, like the father is very traditional.
Yes. So
her growing up in that and becoming a superhero on the side versus him not knowing, but him trying to hold a very traditional lifestyle and home for that. It gives another great side for the character and what you see what she's going through other than just trying to figure out. Because I want to say too, like when she gets these powers, it's not something that she's born with and knows all about. Like she gets it, and around as a teenager, starts trying to figure out. All of a sudden, her hands are giant, and she's trying to hide them, and like random crazy things for her to become who she is at that point.
It's a nice little allegory or I guess comparison. Like when you're a teenager and you wake up and there's a big zit on your head and you don't know where it came from. It's like you're trying to hide it.
Yeah. Preach.
Or all of a sudden, I have a beard. Where'd that come from? Ashley, you don't know anything about it, I'm sure, but
the zit thing that I can totally relate to, but the
beard thing's like not so much.
When I remember in middle school when guys' voices started changing and like how embarrassing that was for you guys. Yes. I feel you on that. Girls have their own things that they go through, but
that's been one of the best things though about being involved with youth for the past couple of years at church and seeing kids that start off as like feel like 3 foot something kids, it seems like, and then the next thing you know, they're taller than you and their voice is starting to drop, but they don't have control over it. So it's just really awesome to see that.
One of the funny, I guess, a little side note, and I don't want to pick on him because he's one of our fans, William Wright, who had appendicitis a couple weeks ago. Had to get his appendix taken out. Oh, no. But I was eating lunch with a friend at the truck stop, and he came in.
Promo code.
Yes. Petro 95. Thanks, Ernie.
The second largest, the only largest. Why can't I think of it?
One of the largest truck stops on the East Coast.
Yes.
Not just that, but the lighthouse.
Yeah, the lighthouse.
Oh, that's an exact 1/3 replica of the Hatteras lighthouse.
And it's in Kinley, North Carolina, y'all. Anyway,
that's right.
But he came walking in, and he's like, "Hey, Mr. Eric." I'm like, "William?" Like literally, like 2 weeks. Like last time I saw him was before this pandemic stuff. And he was like, "Yeah, I love Captain America." And I was like, "Yeah, I love Captain America." And it's like, "Oh, my goodness."
Yep.
Wow.
Coronavirus has done well for your voice.
I'm a real boy.
I'm a real boy, yes. Ashby, you're number 2. Numero dos in Espanol.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I love that was one of your comic book characters because I feel like representation in comics is so important. Representation is important in the entertainment media, period. But when you talk about Miss Marvel and, her unique background that she brings to readers who are like her and who get to see themselves be superheroes. And it doesn't escape my notice or the notice of a lot of people that in this day and age and time that we currently live in, that we're about to see Sam Wilson sling that shield and how
Mm-hmm.
important that is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I didn't know because I wasn't into comic books until I was watching the Avengers with a friend, and she said, I really wish they had made Hawkeye deaf. And I said, what? And she's like, yeah, in the comics, it says at some points and not at other points, he's deaf. And we could have had, Hawkeye and Captain America like signing jokes to one another. And there would have been, hearing impaired children seeing that and seeing themselves represented on screen. And I just think it can't be overstated how important that is.
100% agree. Whenever Chris was kind of selling, like he didn't sell me directly on it, but he was just putting on Twitter, like, and this was like 8 years ago. It's like, if anyone wants, something, like interesting, if you're into comics, check out Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan. And he's like, it's a Muslim teenage girl from Jersey, and I know it sounds weird, but
and you're like, I could totally relate.
And it's like,
I'm gonna pick that up now.
And he's like, and I know that doesn't sound like super exciting, but it's really one of the best series I've ever read. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess. And then so I finally got around to doing it like 3 or 4 years later, and like it was literally the first one of these I've ever bought. It was $5.
So it's like Harry Potter, where you should believe people when they tell
Exactly,
you the first
100%.
time around. Okay,
100%.
just so we're clear.
And
Totally
within the first 10 pages, I was like, okay, I get it.
Okay, Kyle, you haven't even seen Community yet. I'm totally
Yeah, or
agree with that.
Psych,
I have seen Community.
All
and
of
I
it.
have seen Psych.
all of it.
That's okay.
I haven't
all
seen
of it.
Community either. It's okay. Or Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec's awesome as well.
I'm not a big sitcom person. It's another.
I'm gonna jim the camera here.
Parks and Rec has been I finished The Office late compared to everybody else. I was like, well, Parks and Rec's another thing everybody talks about. So I started with that. Parks and Rec's one of those shows that, like, if I have absolutely nothing else to watch, like that I'm like, I really want to watch something, then I'll randomly just continue where I was last.
Right.
But
I'm watching White Collar now. Like, I've seen it before.
It's good.
I
I
like
can get
White
into
Collar.
that.
we just finished the
Season
ranch.
5 and Season 6 are really, really good.
I really loved Leverage.
Leverage
Leverage
is
was
good.
my jam. Oh, they're about to bring it back too. By the
Right,
way,
bring it back.
revival. Anyway, so
Numero
my
dos.
second one is Storm.
Nice.
And this is where I had to start bringing in my speech at the beginning, because when I started thinking about comic book characters I really loved, I was like, oh man, I remember how much I wanted to be Storm. And then how weird that would sound to our audience who was like, wait a second, I thought she only watched the MCU. So I was a really big like X-Men fan when I was younger, because they had the cartoon on
Yes.
Fox Kids, I think. And so I just remember that my first introduction to her was, growing up and watching those episodes. And I went back and watched an episode last night just to like see if it was kind of how
Which
I
one did you
remember.
watch?
Just the very first one.
Okay.
The very first one.
This one was rough.
It
I mean,
was rough.
good, but it was rough.
It was very much like Goosebumps, where I
Gotta love
it's very
Jubilee, though.
cringeworthy. Yeah. Well, and Jubilee was like your typical teenager, where she was like, no one understands me.
I used to have that on VHS because when you were younger at Pizza Hut, they had a deal where like you buy a pizza and you get this like Marvel whatever. And so like there's an interview at the beginning where Stan Lee and like 3 other guys are sitting around a room talking about it. And it wasn't until I was much older I went back and watched. I was like, that's Stan Lee, but like all my childhood he was there, and it was this first episode.
So, Storm is a fictional superhero appearing in the American comic books published by Marvel Comics. The character was created by writer Lynn Wine?
No.
Yeah.
That sounds
we'll
right.
go with that. Yeah.
And artist Dave Cockrum, and first appearing in Giant Size X-Men #1, which was May 1975. She's able to control weather and the atmosphere, and is considered to be one of the most powerful mutants on the planet, which I think is pretty cool. But again, I just remember as a kid, I was like, she can control the weather. Like, how awesome is that?
That is pretty neat.
And then, obviously later, when they finally did a live action X-Men and Halle Berry was Storm, I thought it was really cool to see how they took that character into a live action sort of, with like her powers and how that would look, and CGI, and the fact that her eyes glowed with like lightning almost. And I just thought it was really cool. And so what I didn't know until I was doing some research last night is that she actually has this whole backstory as an African priestess. Like, she's a descendant, and she has a really cool sort of origin story, which I didn't know, which I will not go into here in all of that. But
I'm just kidding.
it's a lot. It's like your typical superhero thing where it's
Yes.
like death and mayhem and sadness and anger and pain.
And then with great power.
Right. Yes, exactly. And then she meets the professor and all that kind of stuff. But I also didn't know that she has sort of a side story that involves being a love interest for T'Challa for Black Panther.
Yes. I'm hoping that's how they'll introduce her
That would be
in the MCU.
That would be awesome.
super cool. So
who's the, that's my ex.
Mhm.
She gets really bad temper and it rains all of a sudden. I don't understand.
Right.
That or just some giant lightning storm comes up and he's like, oh no.
Oh no. Oh no.
There's an episode, or I think there's like a couple of episodes in that original animated series where she goes back to Africa, and you see a lot more of her dealing with that. Where honestly, I feel like they were a little upset that she had left them at some point. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, but like I remember there was that whole back and forth about that. I remember just loving her as a character. Same way I watched the cartoon growing up and thought that just somebody that can control the weather. First off, that's awesome. But then if you don't think deeply about it, it's just like, okay, wow, she can make it rain. But like to see how that is actually used to do things, yes.
Right.
And how like she's able to use that. And plus she's like super smart. Like she's not just somebody that's over, like take Jubilee for example, has powers and has no clue what she's really doing with them. But to see that and to see her grow with that as well. Because I remember too, I don't remember where I heard it or read it, but like she was one of the first, like the cartoon series was one of the first couple things to really put women with power and actually like well deserved and put them on the same pedestal with men characters and superheroes and stuff. The same way they had toy lines with her and everything else, where it wasn't just girls wanting to buy the lady action figure. Like, as a kid, sure, I had a crush on the Pink Ranger, but I didn't have a Pink Ranger action figure. Like, I got one later. Yeah. But I remember...
It's a family show.
Yes. I remember there being... having the X-Men action figures, and I had to have Storm. I was like, she's in a very important part of this main group. Like, I got to have her as well.
Yes.
It wasn't just like, oh, she's just part of something that fixes. It's like, no, like this team is not this team without her.
Well, that's why I really liked seeing her in a different iteration, because I feel like with the cartoons, when you're a kid, you're just like, they're a team and everyone's in it together. But in X-Men, when Halle Berry came in and the dynamic of that group, I mean, she was powerful. Like, she was a leader. People looked to her. She was a teacher. And
when Xavier died in The Last Stand, she took over the school. I mean, she was basically,
the boss.
I mean,
it's one of those things too. Like, I know a lot of people have varied opinions of like the X-Men movies, but like you're saying though, like in these movies, I actually like them, but I know there's some people that care one way or the other.
I loved them.
Yeah, but to see them multiple times that she's given that role of like leadership where she's very trusted with everything going on. She's very trusted with everything.
Is it Days of Future Past? I think there's a scene, where she like busts in, she's like, this is what we're going to do. Yeah. This is, and the professor's looking to her. It's like, I need you to do this and handle this. And,
She did have and it's not her fault, but she had an awful, terrible line in the first X-Men movie when she's battling Toad, or the Toad mutant at the end. You know what happens when lightning strikes a toad? And then she just does her lightning thing, the same thing that happens to everything else. And it's like...
No.
That's not a good quip there, Hallie. Sorry, and I know it's not your fault. I know some jerk wrote this, but fight that next time.
Well, it's kind of like you go back to, though, this is one of those first superhero movies that really came out. There was the first phase, you had Spider-Man, then you had this
20 years this month.
Yeah.
Last month. We should have done a deep dive on it.
We should have.
I mean, I wanted
Where
to.
was the schedule?
I wanted to, and you're like, no, let's not do that. Let's do this instead.
I really need to go back and watch it, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
I need to go back and watch all those X-Men movies.
Yeah, I don't feel like I've
Don't watch
watched
the last thing.
Because I forget what happened in what order, and there was a lot of...
Well, then there's still some confusion there.
Yeah, Days of Future Past is both in the future and in the past. So.
Yeah, that was a lot. I think they just did that so they could have, both actors that had played Professor X and both actors who had played Magneto and shove them in a movie together so they could put them on the talk show circuit together.
I think they also wanted to try to right the wrongs of The Last Stand, but then they went ahead and messed them up with the next two movies anyway. So.
Did you see there's a meme where it's the Graham Norton show, and it's Sir Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman. And then there's a screenshot from another episode of the Graham Norton show where it's Hugh Jackman and the guys who play the younger versions. What are their names?
James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender.
Yes. And it's it's like, so
Pull
it's
those
back
off
to
some.
back. And so, of course, Hugh Jackman doesn't age. And it's like longest interview ever.
Both in the movie and in real life.
Yes.
Doesn't age.
Yeah.
That's true too.
That's what I have.
Do you have any head canon?
No, not for Storm.
Okay, cool.
I'd like to see her like to come into the movies, and honestly, I'm a stickler for like loving the costumes that they give them, and especially in this new world of Marvel where they actually have pretty realistic versions of their original costumes versus first X-Men where everybody's just in black leather walking around.
Yeah, and the women, like, how would you ever fight
No.
looking like that?
You
It's
would
just
not.
not. Yeah,
No.
it's
Not
not.
realistic.
Sorry,
Mm.
sorry.
It would be kind of cool to see like a Storm actually have like an actual cool
I
costume.
mean, Mystique doesn't even have a costume. She just goes out and.
To be fair, she's the one that looks the most like her.
Exactly. Though.
That's true. It's like not a single person was like, "Are we gonna talk about how she's naked?"
Mhm.
No one.
Nobody.
No
Nope.
one.
Scales.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Everything.
Cool.
All right.
Cool. Cool.
All
Cool.
right. Cool.
Cool, cool.
Cool. Cool. Cool.
That makes me wonder though, are fish naked if they have scales? Like, but she has scales everywhere, so I don't know.
Number 3, family show. Let's not go down this road.
This one.
After we turn the cameras off.
Ugh.
This one's a completely different one. You've probably never heard of this character.
Is it Mighty Mouse?
It's not.
Is it Underdog?
I loved Mighty Mouse.
Is it
The
Modest
cartoon.
Mouse, the band?
No, not quite.
Who I confused with Maroon 5 early on in Maroon 5's career.
Well, alright.
It's like, who thinks that she will be left on? I think it's Modest Mouse.
Yeah, good.
No, it's Maroon 5.
Mighty Mouse. Oddly Normal is this character. It says, meet Oddly Normal, a 10-year-old girl with pointed ears and green hair, a half-witch who will be the first to tell you that having a mother with a magical land called Fig Nation and a father from Earth doesn't make it easy to make friends at school. On her 10th birthday, she blows out her cake candles and makes a disastrous wish. Now, Oddly must travel to Fig Nation to uncover the mystery of her parents' disappearance. This is Oddly Normal. This is what she looks like on Free Comic Book Day that happens once a year, every year. This year, I think it's been delayed. But the first issue of this was put out, and I was like, man, she's like, I like the style and how she's drawn. I was like, I don't know anything about her, but I love the way like she's drawn. You can kind of look through it and stuff, but
It's like a Men's Warehouse commercial. We love the way you look.
yeah.
I guarantee it.
So I ended up picking up the book though, and because it was Free Comic Book Day, so I got it free. And then after reading the first one, I was like, I love the art in this. I love the way it's done. I've got to pick this up.
She looks like she listens to Paramore.
I can see that. Then.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see that.
She has her dark eyeliner on. She's very emo-ish somewhat.
There's my headcanon for you.
Yep, there you go. In the book though, I really like it because at first I think she's just walking home, and that's when I discovered that she was a witch. Where it reminded me, they take little. Otis Frampton is the creator, writer, and artist on this book.
It does it all.
Yeah, he does. But for me,
It's like Harry Potter a little bit.
it really is. He takes different things from.
Does a
different-
giant shield say, "You're a witch, Harry"?
Not quite. But her grandma does show her aunt shows up and takes her to Fig Nation. But
So it's more like Halloween Town.
sort of. I like how what they do is they take different like little things from all of the pop culture world that you know.
It's the best of all the worlds.
Where, Wizard of Oz, she gets wet and she's melting. Well, Oddly Normal's walking home from the bus in the rain and has an umbrella, and it's just normal. Well, all of a sudden the wind picks up the umbrella and the little rain starts hitting her, and she's like, ow, 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 like all the way down like to her door, where the rain is like stinging her. She's not dead, but she's half witch, half human. In the same way, she has green hair, she has all these things, and her mom pretty much, they're living the real world. The mom just kind of sticks straight to being, she's not a witch, doesn't let the world really know. And Oddly, hates this because she's got pointy ears, she's got green hair. It's very obvious that she's different. Her name actually is Oddly Normal, which is even worse. But
It's a great name.
the
That's
kids at school pick
fantastic.
on her and everything else. Well, she ends up wishing that everything was different. Well, she ends up, her parents disappear, her whole family disappears. So her aunt, I think it's her aunt, ends up taking her to Fig Nation. And it's this whole other magical world, a lot like Harry Potter somewhat, where all the characters, some look human, some are complete monsters and everything else. But I definitely recommend it for either one of you because it's just fun. It's honestly more
I'll
so
check it
written
out.
for like a younger group, a little bit somewhat. But there's a lot of it there that it reminds me of Harry Potter, reminds me of stuff like where she's going to the school and having to figure out things, and there's teachers that are teaching these crazy things that it reminds me of Harry Potter, where all of a sudden you have teachers that could be a bat or could be an animal or could be anything. Like, it's a lot like that.
Hello, Professor McGonagall.
Yes. So a lot of stuff like that. And
Can't wait for her to talk about her. Anyway,
I ended up following Otis Frampton online. I was just like, okay, well, who's this dude? He draws like this. And the cool thing is, I think he all does a lot of it in Procreate, which is just an iPad app. And so he would do all these things online showing you him creating characters, doing all this other stuff. And there's 3 books out total now. Originally it was individual comics, and then they made a deal with Image Comics to make it his books. And so he's doing a Kickstarter now for the 4th one. But I think he's had a brain tumor removed like a week ago.
Oh, wow.
And so he's out for a couple weeks. But
bless him.
I don't know if you've ever seen How It Should Have Ended on YouTube. If not, I totally recommend that. They take all the popular movies that come out, and then they do a cartoon version of how this should have ended.
Oh, I have seen that, yeah.
Yes, he does a lot of the artwork for that.
Oh, that's cool. I'm familiar with this stuff, yeah.
Have they done one for Endgame yet?
They did I watched it today.
We're going to have to watch that.
I'm going to have to watch that.
I got on a rabbit trail at work today where I started one to remember if he did the artwork, and then just kept going.
Speaking of a rabbit trail, I know this is like just completely side note, but I know we can't show like a movie like for us, but we need to do like a live watch along with us at some point.
Okay.
Like, okay, we're gonna live watch whatever.
Yeah.
And we're gonna comment on it whilst we watch it, and then y'all people can jump in. I think that would be fun. For our expanded What the What universe.
Yeah, like cast commentary.
Yes,
yeah.
cast. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, couch commentary, or whatever you said.
I said cast commentary, but couch commentary.
Couch commentary
sounds like something that we could copyright.
Yes,
right now.
That's better.
I'm on it.
But I watched someone today where they did Infinity War, and he was like, "How many options do we have?"
On Work with Friends.
They had
my move.
Doctor Strange is doing his whole like meditating, going crazy thing, and he's like, "How many outcomes did you see?" And he's like, 5. And so all of a sudden they like showed 5 different ways this could have ended, and then they were like, "No, really, this is how it should have ended." And
right.
Then,
well, he said 14 million and 5. He really just meant 5.
Yeah. So it was really funny though, because they do show you multiple ways, and it's always done in humor, and
right.
It's mostly superhero movies and everything else. They did one for the Joker just came out, which was awesome, and then Harley Quinn.
Did you see Joker?
It's really good.
No,
we watched it.
I don't know if you'd like it, to be honest, but
we watched it at the Alamo. The Alamo, is it the Draft House? Yeah, and
wait, which one was that?
This is the one with Joaquin Phoenix.
No.
It came out last year.
It came out back in October.
No. No.
We went and watched it, and literally, so I don't know if you've ever been to the Alamo Draft House, but they have these really, really nice cushion chairs, and they bring you a menu and just really good stuff. We watched the first, not the first, but the new Halloween movie the year before. It's the first time I've ever been in a place like that. I was like, okay, this is how you watch movies right here.
100%.
As long as I don't fall asleep, we're good.
It's on the pricier side of things, but it's totally worth
it.
But
Joker was really, really awesome. But I remember the movie ended, and we kind of just sat there for like five minutes. And, I didn't speak until we got in the car or into the Jeep, and
that was one of those movies
and it's
where
like,
I just knew it was
and this is where I stand on it now. It's like, in terms of a cinematic experience, it was one of the best cinematic experiences I've ever been a part of, and I have no desire to ever see it again.
Yeah, this is where I maybe go off the rails with.
Go off the rails.
Off the rails.
Off the rails with Ashby. Memoir 2.
And I actually argue with one of my friends about this a lot, because he's so into the cinematic experience and watching movies to critique them and into the Oscar stuff and what makes a good movie good.
Right.
Your friend Justin Fawcett, because that sounds a lot.
That does sound like Justin.
No, actually, I'm talking about Andrew Bailey.
Oh, Scott Bailey 23, yes.
Yeah, I'm talking about Andrew Bailey. So, and we go round and round about it, where he's just like, but it wasn't good. And I'm like, but it was entertaining.
Yeah, did you enjoy it?
Right.
That's kind of where I land on that, too.
Did you enjoy watching it? And he's like, but it wasn't good.
It's weird for me to have, the opinion I had of Joker, because I recognize, the art behind it, which is... But I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. I mean, does that make sense? I mean, it's hard for me to...
So that's what I'm saying, is that, I knew the minute I saw that trailer, it was going to be a good movie.
Yeah.
But I also knew the minute I saw the trailer that I wasn't going to enjoy watching it.
Exactly.
Therefore, I didn't watch it.
Right.
It's one of those movies for me the same way. There's a movie called Elephant, which is more of a,
You never forget it.
No, I don't like...
There it is. I'm waiting for it.
It's...
Got the dad joke, Shell.
Gus Van Sant is the director of it, and same one that did, he did a lot of other things. It was the mass shooting that happened a long time ago in the 90s.
Columbine?
Columbine. It's literally a representation of Columbine.
Gotcha.
And I remember Will Howard got it, and we got into watching all these like deep mental movies and stuff. So it was one of those ones I really liked because it showed you multiple sides. Like you'd be walking as a character, and it's a lot how 13 Reasons Why is, where you would be like the one character, and then a whole other one you'd be a different character, and you would pass the person you literally were yesterday.
Right.
So there's a lot of that involved.
Is it like Scrubs whenever they have the one-off episodes where you don't hear JD's narration? He passes someone and then it's Turk's episode where like they do one of
not quite so much.
They would do one a season where you usually hear JD's narration throughout the episode, but then like something happens and then like in season 2 I think it's Turk and then it's Elliot, then it's Kelso and Cox. Anyway,
this one's so much you're not in the person's head; you're just following that character and seeing their life.
Gotcha.
But it's a lot of that for Joker for me. Like I would totally watch Joker again, but it's the same way for me that Dead Poet Society is, where I really like it, but it's a certain movie that's heavy for me that I can only watch certain time.
Yeah, I
So-
get that.
I would totally watch it again because it made me think a lot. And it's cool how they added in things from like the Batman world just enough so it's in that character, but they didn't overflood it to be like, oh, we got to make sure they know that this is the world of Batman will live in someday. Like they didn't do that at all. They just had little like nuances that made you realize like, oh, that's kind of how this works together. But I don't know. I enjoyed it. But
So your number 3 was Oddly Normal.
Oddly
I don't know
Normal.
how we got off on this
They
tangent.
both have green hair.
But
So the Joker and her.
Oddly Normal, very cool. I definitely want to check it out because it's
Totally
really.
recommend.
That is really
It's
neat.
fun.
All right, so I think it's my turn. Number
Yes.
3.
Yes.
Okay, so my number 3,
Black Panther.
I actually Black Panther is one of my honorable mentions. But
Nice.
who do you think my number 3 is? Since he took a guess,
Oh.
Kyle's gonna kick himself when he realizes who
I'm
it
hoping
is.
it's Power Rangers.
It
but-
is.
Okay.
Oh, it's Power Ranger. Oh man.
Yeah. So like I didn't really.
Which one though? You can't pick them all.
I'm not
You
picking.
can't pick them all.
I'm not picking them all. I'm not even picking. Not actually picking any of the Power Rangers actually.
Oh, Zordon.
No,
Who in the
Zordon's
world's
great.
a fan of Zordon?
I'm not a fan of Zordon. He puts teenagers in battle, and they actually talk about the anyway. So I'll get off on
Rita
that.
Repulsa.
Not
later.
close actually. My character is Lord Draken.
The putty.
Oh, nice. Everybody
Yes.
knows. So those guys, you punch them in the chest, they're gone, but there's always more.
So when we did our Mighty Morphin Power Rangers episode back in January, I discovered that there were. I mean, I kind of knew, but I didn't really know. I discovered there were Power Rangers comics, and so I bought one just research purposes, and I enjoyed the Power Rangers, and I really
For research
purposes, yes,
Yes, to know more.
to know more.
Like, why you buy
And
that?
I really
Power
enjoyed them.
Ranger
And so,
action
and Kyle can kind of contest it. He can kind of like back this up. For a couple weeks there, I was like buying like another one every 2 or 3 days. I'd get it, I'd read it, and I'd order another one like immediately.
That's the thing with buying trades like that, because you read it and you're never going to read it again.
Yeah.
Versus Harry Potter or something, you got these big like books. You'll sit down and read the book again, but most likely you're not going to go back through all those trades again.
So, but I was introduced to this character, Lord Draken. Lord Draken is a cruel and sinister older version of Tommy Oliver, who was the Green Ranger in the original canon.
Hot.
From
Oh,
an alternate reality.
boy, we knew that.
Yeah, we knew that. They paired him.
You wanted to be
They
him.
paired him with the Pink Ranger, so
I
he was
met
obvious.
Jason David Franks, and he's also hot in real life.
I'm sure.
I saw him at. He did. Sorry to like hack over your thing here.
Don't hack on it.
We're both hacking all over
Don't hack
everything.
all over my thing.
He was at the Comic-Con, the same one, and he did a panel, and it was awesome to hear him just talk. Where he seems like a down-to-earth dude as well. I didn't meet him. I'm not as cool as Ashby, but
This might be the second time I cry on stream, but this time it's
Great. That's great.
it's not because Dead Poet Society made me cry. Anyway, so he's a cruel and sinister older version of Tommy Oliver from an alternate reality where he rules his Earth with an iron fist from a dystopic and futuristic Angel Grove where he is in total control.
So it's an evil twin plot.
Basically.
Okay.
If you see, this is the 8th volume of the Shattered Grid series where it brings in a bunch of different Power Rangers from their like TV show canon all into one reality. But you see the helmets at the bottom where he's pretty much killing everyone. I mean, it's pretty awesome.
Does this have a rating?
No.
Okay.
He is an evil Power Ranger who controls the Black Dragon and battles Power Rangers, and he serves as the main antagonist for the Shattered Grid arc. And the thing I really loved about this was like I brought the final edition of this or the last volume 8. instead of the first one. The first one just had the Power Ranger on the cover. I wanted one with him on the cover. And it kind of starts like right after the Green Ranger joins the team. The Green Ranger in the the kids TV show was evil. He was controlled by Rita Repulsa, and then they brought him back to the good side. And it picks up right after that, like where he's still trying to kind of fit his way on the team, and he's still worried about maybe being turned evil again, and he's just trying to really fit in. And the other team members are trying to accept him, but there's still some who have their reservations. Like this guy was just kicking.
I was about to say,
he was just kicking
I don't know that.
Just kicking our tail just a couple of weeks ago, and so there's some issues there, and it's stuff that you don't really go into on the kids' TV series, and it kind of goes really deep.
Deep dive into books.
It deep dives into the background, and it explores the morphing grid, which is where they get the power from their coins or whatever to morph into the Rangers. And but then it kind of, when you go into the alternate realities and dimensions, you see alternate versions of our regular heroes too. You got Tommy, but then you see an alternate version of like Kimberly, who's like the Ranger Slayer. You got alternate versions of Bulk and Skull. Skull's like a renegade rebel who's trying to rebel against Lord Draken, but he's like undercover.
This reminds me of an episode of Buffy.
I mean, honestly,
where they were all evil versions of themselves.
Yeah. But you see really
What's your favorite character Blue Ranger up to in this book?
Blue Ranger actually, he you see both versions of him. I think one of them dies. Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Billy.
Yeah. No, Billy. And then they start bringing in people, Rangers from other dimensions. I don't know like exactly. I think this one with the pink heart. I think it's Time Force. I'm not sure which.
This was fascinating.
I mean, that was beyond my
a whole new world.
Yeah, because I watched the TV show growing up as a kid, but I didn't know any of this backstory or how any of the Rangers.
It goes really deep,
works.
and then it goes into the history. Like the first time Zordon recruited Rangers for Earth was in the 1960s, and he had like a female Red Ranger, which was awesome, and I think a male Pink Ranger which was really cool.
Did they actually ever explain the genesis of Power Rangers in the TV show? Because I don't remember that.
No, they did not.
It's just like they're there.
But they go into it deep in one of these books here, and like the reason like it took Zordon 30 years to recruit new ones is because 4 of the original members of the team died in their first mission, and the only one that survived ended up working for it's not NASA but NASADA, which is their version of NASA, and it's just really really interesting about just how like Zordon. Like some of the team kind of rebels against them a little bit because like you're putting children, teenagers, as soldiers in this war, and
okay, Batman.
Like seriously, literally. But it's just so many like deep parallels where Zordon, he's good, but is he good? And just anyway, the comic series is really awesome. But Lord Draken, he's just one of the best villains I've ever seen in any kind of medium. And I just really, really enjoyed watching his arc and how he kind of spiraled. They kind of tell his backstory, how he spiraled in that alternate dimension. He ends up killing Rita Repulsa. Like Rita, like the same thing happened in that dimension. Rita, like, here's Tommy, you're evil now, and he ends up usurping her ends up killing her. So Zordon and
the enemy of mine enemy is my
literally
friend.
Zordon and Rita end up teaming up. Because he knows it's going to happen, that's the only way to stop it. It's really, really good stuff. So, Lord Draken, my number 3. Feel free to, I was going to pass this around, but feel free to flip through and whatever. It's really awesome.
I joined a Facebook group this week and I almost added you.
You're fun.
Because it's like just
Power
Power
Rangers.
Rangers.
My shoe, yeah.
But it's people that collect Power Ranger stuff. They're big fans.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I even started following is because somebody was showing like guys that sell the helmets and stuff that are in there.
It's like, there's the Ranger Slayer. She looks so awesome. That's Kimberly in an alternate dimension.
They have action figures of her. Like in this
That's
group, they were showing that.
amazing.
Yeah.
But there's different people in there.
She's not just hot in the comic series, okay? She's like a warrior. I can't say the real word. I don't want to say it's a family show, but you get it.
But she's also hot, so.
She's still hot.
Still hot. It's like Tommy. He might be bad, but he's still hot.
He's still hot.
That's what we'll do. We'll all dress up as Power Rangers and go to a
Yes.
Oh man.
Ashby's the only one that's in shape that can actually wear the actual costumes, so we'll just get the ninja ones.
We can just be
robes.
We can be Bulk and Skull.
Yeah. Okay.
Da 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 da.
Wow. Wow.
Fun times.
We should apply for a booth at Raleigh Comic Con next year.
Next year.
Yes,
Yeah,
next year.
and we should like go live from Raleigh Comic Con.
See, when we talked about doing the show or the podcast, that's one of the things I brought up last summer. Was like, hey, maybe not this year, but in a couple of years, we should do, apply for a booth, and it only costs this much, whatever. And it's like, yeah, we should do that. So you're on the right track. I love it. We should definitely do it. 2021, what the what, live from Raleigh Con.
That's right.
We'll need more merch than just this one cup. So we'll need a
We'll
banner.
work on it.
We'll need a banner, some shirts, deep dive, not grammatically correct. What the what?
Right.
Family show.
Some
Family
stickers.
show. Getting weird with Ashby. She can have her more out.
That's right. I can make the stickers and the memes. Anyway, memes and the stickers.
Yeah.
Just imagine you giving out blank books, like with your picture. Like, you just went to and bought to the bookstore and bought a bunch of journals.
Yes.
And you just put on put a sticker or something on the cover.
Thank
Like,
you
oh, I
for
haven't written it yet.
reading
but
my
I'm going
memoir.
to.
Yeah, but I'm going to.
Just stay
There's
tuned and copy it down.
Funny.
you can Venmo me to fund me writing my memoir. That'd be great.
I just figured you were just going to sell blank ones and be like, will you just call me every once in a while or tune in and write it down as I talk about it.
Hilarious.
Maybe by then we'll have our spinoff, What the Book. Where we talk about all things Harry Potter.
We're not calling it What the Book.
No, we're not. That's a what the what wasn't
If
original.
I'm involved with this. We're not having anything.
What the what wasn't our original name. It was the best thing we could come up with, and it turned out okay.
Yeah.
On Rickie's couch.
Yeah, we were like, what the what, and he's like, hey, that's a good name. Let's go with it. Okay,
It makes sense.
sure.
It encompasses all things.
Something I was going to talk to you off the air before we get to your number 3. I love our logo, but for our 1 year anniversary,
Just change it up.
we a new logo. I'm just you're our logo guy. You're the arty guy.
Arty?
Maybe.
Oh, Artie.
Maybe.
It could be Ashby.
Maybe.
She's got all these hidden talents we don't know.
Yeah, I know. We're still learning about her talents. So.
I've got many of them. Hidden secrets.
Don't have them. Put
Secrets.
it all out there.
She hasn't been on Joko's Got Talent or whatever the name of that blog was that we talked about.
Yes.
So.
I
Joko's
thought you were
Got
going to say
Talent.
the Joker report. It's like, well, I haven't seen Ashby.
I hope none of us are ever on the Joko report. They're ruthless, relentless. Anyway, number 3, Ashby.
So
It's like, that's my weird part. It's like, I don't know your relation to the Joker report. Like, are they friendly or do you technically work with them? Or what's your goal there?
No.
Cool, we'll move forward.
I feel like that gif of what's his name at the award show where he's like
It's like, I could get fired. Move along. Move along.
anyway, my number 3
Move
character.
along like that. Okay.
Speaking of way back like five conversations ago to hot things, Remy LeBeau, Gambit,
Nice.
number 3,
All right now.
is a fictional character appearing in American comic books published by Marvel Comics, commonly in association with the X-Men. The character was created by writer Chris Claremont and artist Jim Lee, drawn by artist Mike Collins. Gambit made his first appearance in Uncanny X-Men number 14 in July of 1990. And then in Uncanny X-Men number 266 in August of 1990. I just really like
I was like what is Eric pulling out?
cards.
You gotta
He's
let him
throwing
charge.
them.
I'm throwing
You gotta,
cards.
it's like
You gotta let him
you
charge
gotta
first.
flick the wrist and like make it.
And these are not just any cards. These are elf
Elf
cards.
cards.
Well, I
They're the
don't
only set of
think, I don't think Gambit would have elf cards. Like, okay.
Hey, he'll use anything. I didn't realize these were the cards I had in my bag. I
Follow
they were,
me.
I thought they were the cards of the beach, but anyway.
Anyway, I've really enjoyed reading these backgrounds. Like, I know what I'm talking about when I'm like in Uncanny X-Men number 266.
No,
You
that's
guys
right.
know what I'm talking about. That one.
Absolutely.
I will be honest with you. That's the one series that you started talking about.
My favorite one.
I haven't read it necessarily, but Jim Lee and Chris Claremont, that's one of like the best X-Men runs, at least so up here.
Okay.
But a lot of the comic book art and stuff is a lot similar to what you see on the cartoon series, and a lot of stuff they took was from that.
Interesting.
But no, it's one of the best ones. Like, if I was to recommend reading X-Men, that's what I would recommend.
Okay.
It's uncanny.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So Gambit has the ability to mentally create, control, and manipulate pure kinetic energy to his desire. He's also incredibly knowledgeable and skilled in card throwing, as Eric just demonstrated.
Also, we're boring Eric. Eric is now
I'm just making sure I have all the cards.
And hand-to-hand combat and the use of a bow staff. Gambit is known to charge playing cards and other objects with kinetic energy, using them as explosive projectiles. Please don't do that, Eric.
Yes.
He was part of a thieves guild before becoming a member of the X-Men. Given his history, few X-Men trusted Gambit when he first joined the group, kind of as we talked about a while ago with the Power Rangers. So I put that, obviously my first intro to Gambit was the cartoons,
Yes.
the X-Men cartoons.
Great Cajun accent there.
And I think that my lifelong love for Gambit probably stems from a habit I have of attaching myself to characters with moral ambiguity and then going to bat for them.
We can get on the couch and talk about this.
Right, yeah. So one of my absolute favorite characters in the Harry Potter books is Draco Malfoy. He'd be really easy to
We can
hate.
do a whole episode on Draco and
Yes.
Snape.
Ugh.
Oh my goodness.
So he'd be really easy to hate or to lump in with all the truly evil characters in the series, but you can't. And in fact, as the books progress, it becomes increasingly harder to do so. And I really love characters like that when they make you uncomfortable and you could just as easily argue for them or against them, which is why I like Gambit.
Not just black and white, shades
Right,
of gray,
and
baby.
probably also why I love Bucky Barnes so much and Draco Malfoy. Anyway, so I like Gambit from the start on the X-Men cartoon, though when I was watching it last night, I realized that it probably didn't have anything to do initially with attraction because, one, I was a kid, and two, he's a cartoon, and he was really not that good looking as a cartoon.
I was about to say though, like as
He
a
looked
kid
really
boy,
weird.
you could be very attracted to a lot of. Like,
Have you ever seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Anyway.
Yes.
I mean, I was really attracted to Captain Planet, actually.
Jessica
now that I think
Rabbit was
about it,
on
but
Ross's list on Friends.
Gambit was not a good looking cartoon. There are good looking cartoons.
Okay, fair enough.
He had like a very stick face.
I think what I really loved was his, like, he had a really interesting fighting style with the bow staff, and it reminded me of you talking about picking up your clothes with, like, your foot, and just, like, the way that he uses his body and the way he fights was very different from the other X-Men, and so I really like that.
I was like too when he's holding it and he's about to throw those things and they're going to explode and he's like, "You ain't worth it," and just like tosses it up and it's just in the air or whatever.
It's like
But
a
also-
dud firework.
Yeah, instead of exploding, just gone.
Even just watching that one episode last night as an adult, there were a lot of adult themes
Yeah.
that I missed totally as a child. Like, he's so flirtatious. And they're very,
Wait a
like,
minute.
over the top. Like, he's picking up a deck of cards from the shop.
Yes.
And the shop owner is a woman.
Mhm.
And she's like, "Oh, you like to play with cards?" And he's like, "Well, I like it better when I have someone to play with." And it
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, "What? This is for children!"
She fell for it. If it wasn't for that Sentinel
Right.
conference,
Let me tell you, let me show you my ace of diamonds here.
Oh my gosh.
Family show.
Family show. But anyway, so that was my first introduction to Gambit. And then later, as not a child, I was introduced to Taylor Kish as Gambit in the Wolverine Origin movie. And that was when I was like, whew, is it hot? Is
It's
it
hot
hot
in
in
here.
here?
Well, it is
like
hot.
There's like a bad movie, and then she's like, "No, I loved it."
I loved it. It was so great.
It was a bad movie, but
Ryan Reynolds was Deadpool in that too.
But Taylor Kish I was just like, that's not what the cartoon looked like at
No.
all. Like,
But he did an
more of
awesome
that.
job. Like,
In fact, he was so good that I was probably the only woman on the planet years later when they said that Channing Tatum wanted to play Gambit. I was like, no, thank you. It's
So I was
Taylor
going to
Kish
ask, are you
available.
excited about the Channing Tatum
No.
possibly being Gambit?
It should be Taylor Kish.
Still, okay, cool.
I
Yeah.
just don't feel like. I feel like
At this point, I don't think
funny.
he can be Channing Tatum.
No, I think they've already changed it again.
Ugh.
But I just don't think he could do it. Like, I don't think in the world that we live in, the X-Men series, like or the
No.
like Marvel world we have, it would be taking it too cheesy and giving it like a '90s style Gambit, and that's not his character.
Right. No. Eric's trying to read my
I
notes.
am.
He does that.
I do. Do you have any fanon versus canon versus head canon for Gambit, or can you talk about that on stream?
Not particularly. It was when we talked about, representation earlier, I was going through trying to look for recent news about the Gambit movie because it's obviously kind of stalled. And when I Googled it, Channing Tatum came up as someone who either has or could play him, but there's no up-to-date information about the movie. But there was some information, some news that had come out a few years ago that was still kind of at the top of the news on Google that I thought was interesting. And there's been news in recent years from comic book writers and fans alike about making the character canonically bisexual, which I thought was interesting because I find Remy to be very similar to Deadpool in John Constantine in that he's very much overly amorous
Flirts
with
with
almost
everything,
anything that
yeah.
like breathes and walks on two legs. So I thought it wouldn't be that big of a stretch for me as a character, and I thought it was really interesting. But the guy who wrote one of the most recent runs of Gambit he kind of ran that up the flagpole, and they were like, let's not get into that right now. So, but I thought that was really interesting, especially in recent years where it's kind of like Deadpool sort of like pansexual, and there are more LGBTQ comic book characters, which I think is really great. Right. So that was my sort of like headcanon, fanon.
Very cool
Thing. So
all the cannons.
All the cannons. Chudley cannons, yes. Honorable mentions?
If I was going to add anybody else, Flash is the one that's kept coming to my list. He's kind of like how Captain America was. Like growing up, I didn't know a ton about him. It's just because he wasn't one of your main X-Men or anybody else that you saw. Well, obviously this is DC, but
obviously.
Whenever I got into reading comics again, he was one of the main ones I picked up too. And so to learn, he's a lot how Robin is, and like, but there's a billion different Flashes where it's been here, and then where you got like your main two or whatever, but there's so many different people that have stepped in and out of that role and all the different dimensions. But
that's why I really loved Crisis. I thought they handled all the different Flashes really well.
Yes.
And Flash is like the only show that I still stick to that I have to watch. Like out of all the superhero ones I was watching, well, like Gotham's over, and I fought my way through that one at some points. But Arrow was what got me into it, and then I kind of fell off like with Arrow, like with season 2.
Arrow's the only one I stuck with the whole way through.
But
I do like Legends of Tomorrow though.
I've watched every episode of Arrow, Flash, Legends, Supergirl, and Batwoman.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
They're all really good.
Honorable mentions for you?
My honorable mentions, obviously when you sort of talk about favorite comic book characters, I didn't want to say like, oh, Captain America, because he's up there, but I wanted to do some different ones that I really love. But Rogue was kind of up there on my list.
I hope that she gets brought in again at some point. She
I
never
really
got
like her.
She was kind of underrepresented in the movies, just because when you talk about the X-Men, there's so many different characters. I mean, someone's going to get the shaft, and I would have rather them.
As powerful as she is, though, she should have been able to do a lot more than
right.
I mean, there's talk about her being involved in the new Captain Marvel.
Nice.
Right.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
And then also one of my honorable mentions was Wonder Woman.
Oh, nice.
Diana, love her.
Yes. My honorable mention. This is where I was considering kind of going like really, really off script because I couldn't remember if we said comic book characters or just comic characters in general. And when I think of comic, I think of like comic strips.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I'm thinking of the Peanuts gang, like Charlie Brown and Snoopy.
Oh, then mine would 100% be Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah. And, then I think of the Pearls Before Swine, Rat, Goat, Pig.
I've always been a huge like Dennis the Mitchell fan, or Dennis the Menace, like growing that, and then the show, like, and the black and white TV show growing up,
and then like Garfield, Garfield was comic strip. So I thought about those, going down that route. I was like, I don't know if I could really argue for it, but they're iconic.
I think you gotta argue, but they're still like iconic characters.
So I mean, they're done in print. They're not in books. So I've
got a Calvin and Hobbes book at home.
I have a Peanuts book at home too. So
it works.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to share it.
Don't be afraid.
Put it up there.
All right. From our social media shout out, Chris Rhodes said, definitely the Flash. He's my favorite superhero. There's a multitude of different reasons why he's my favorite, but the top three: super speed, a founding member of the Justice League, and he can read and retain information using his speed. This may sound corny, but being able to consume knowledge at his level would be awesome.
That's something I wish I could do. I can't even read a book at like normal speed half the time and like retain what I just read.
I'm trying to with Harry Potter. I'm halfway through the book I started reading today.
See, like, something like that I can do. Like Harry Potter is like, cool. I'm talking like knowledge that would actually
like astrophysics in 5 minutes. Yeah.
History is another thing for me.
That's what I really love about the Flash show is they've done a really good job on building on his abilities. And so the idea that he can consume a lot of knowledge and calculate at very quick speeds, and it's more than just like he runs fast.
Yeah.
The idea that they brought in like time travel and phasing and all the other things that would accompany like your body moves at sonic speed.
Well, that's the reason I ended up picking up the comic books is just because of that show, to realize there's so much more to this character than just a guy that runs fast. So.
Right.
Let's see. He said another side thought is that his brain has to be used at super speed to be able to control his body and thoughts while traveling that fast. And then Kyle had, some amazing choice. And then Ashby running to what page? There's some gifts.
Yeah.
and then Chris said, and can we now be honest, I think is what he's trying to say. Can we know honest? I used to love Superman, but not so much anymore. He's more of an annoyance. He is given the golden boy treatment. I mean, come on. What can't he do? And the writers keep coming up with superpowers for him. Can't he do enough? Also, my second favorite is Martian Manhunter. I'm not as much caught up on him as I would like to be, but his powers and approach to problems are pretty cool. And then Kyle agrees with that, but he's never been a fan of Superman, but Martian Manhunter's a cool character, though. Hunter Batten says Hellboy, which is an interesting,
great choice, yeah.
very great choice. He absolutely loves Mignola's art style. The character is compelling, and the stories and villains / monsters are fresh. All of it being tied into mythology and lore make it feel real and unique all at once. That's one thing that we didn't really... I got into with the Power Rangers series a little bit, but I'm a big fan of lore.
Yes.
Like stories being built on history and kind of tying all together, and not just being one-off stories.
When there's a robust background.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Big fan of the lore. So, Green Hornet, Kevin Smith's run with the Alex Ross covers should have been the G.H. and Kato, female granddaughter of the original movie we got to see instead of the Seth Rogen version. It's a shame. The comic was fantastic, though. Wolverine, the claws, the attitude, the immortality, he's just cool. And then Deadpool, fourth wall breaking smart tail. Yes, please.
Yep.
Wolverine was the other one that would have made my list.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I threw Oddly Normal because I was like, I want something that's just different and odd.
Yeah.
So I threw in Oddly.
Oddly normal.
All right, Bub. Stephen Such. First of all, I don't know Stephen.
He's my friend.
He's your friend, okay.
Yeah.
We were bringing in new friends.
Yes,
So,
you got
Stephen,
him.
thank you. If you listen to the podcast, we appreciate you commenting.
Thanks, Steven.
Thanks to everybody else, too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but
Like,
yeah.
all you regular
Forget y'all,
Forget
Chris
you.
and Hunter.
You've got your names mentioned.
Stephen Such says Nightcrawler. I
love
think's
Nightcrawler.
fantastic. He doesn't get enough love. He's an underrated X-Men member. I also thought it was cool growing up that he was Catholic like me. And I think that's something really, really awesome that I think the second X-Men movie, X-Men or X2, whatever it was titled, really kind of explored a little bit, but I know it goes deeper in the comics how he's deeply religious, but he looks like a demon. And so he's he kind of, that's a struggle he goes through. And I like little personal conflicts.
Even
like
the
that,
cartoon deals with that, or deals with it a little bit on there.
So and Kyle said I totally agree with that one. I always loved Nightcrawler growing up. He was also a fun character to play with on
He was in the
X-Men
video.
arcade.
He vanishes and reappears in
Yep.
other places.
Let me see if we had anything on the gram.
I'm really surprised, and I don't know why. I just figured, especially maybe someone like Hunter Batten would bring up Watchmen, and no one
That's
did.
another good one.
Nice.
But I mean that is
I haven't
so
read the book.
dark.
I've heard
so
it's
much
really good,
darker. So
But the movie, it's once again, I can't sit down and watch the movie all the time,
right,
but sometimes.
right.
All right. Tim Hutchinson, Greenheart31 says, I don't know if I still have any, but I remember reading a lot of Spider-Man comics as a kid. I think I started around the Ben Reilly era. And he also says, the Sonic and Knuckles comics from the 90s, which, pretty cool. And then James says he likes Red Hood from the Batman. So, thank y'all for commenting on our social media. Again, What the What Media, all one word, on Facebook and Instagram. WTW_media on Twitter. I didn't check Twitter, but we don't usually get responses on Twitter.
I didn't see anything come across.
Cool deal. Do y'all have anything else y'all want to add? Where are we at on time this week, Kyle?
It's our longest episode of all time.
Really?
I honestly figured this was going to be the short one. No.
Wow.
It keeps happening.
I'm not going to tell you because we're not done quite yet, but
I love it.
did you realize you're going to have to buy a PlayStation this year?
Oh, because of the Spider-Man game coming out.
Miles Morales game is coming out now.
and Christmas. Why am I buying it? Aren't you buying it? I'm just coming to your house and playing.
I figured you were going to get one because I've got to get one to play Tony Hawk on, and then we'll just play online. I've never done that in my entire life.
Okay. All right. We'll see. We'll
Buy
see.
you one and buy me one too.
No, that's not how this works.
I thought we were friends.
I'm
My anniversary is in September. You can buy
I'm
it
a
for me
poor
then.
friend. I'm a very.
Nah,
I'm a
you'll be
teacher
working
friend.
again. Cut some grass. That's how you bought your first
That's true.
video game system.
This is true.
Either way, we'll stop going because it's now been 1 hour and 38 minutes.
Holy crap. Okay.
Wow.
All right, friends. Well, a big thank you to Rickie Liles for letting us use the J House studio here. Thank you, Kyle and Ashby, as well. We hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as we did, and that you are as pumped for the rest of our journey into the vast world of pop culture. Next week, what are we talking about, y'all?
Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burgers.
Can
Can
I
I take your order?
There's a little tease for you next week. Until next time, I have no witty quote. We hope you stay as cool as the other side of the pillow, and we will see you on the What the What podcast.
What the what?
Bye.
It's a weird ending there. It's just like, what, extra words.
Extra words.